Welcome to the Make a Statement podcast with Derek Robinson and Paul Tayon, presented by Mass Strategy. Let's go.
Welcome to the Make a Statement podcast, where we teach you what to say, how to say it, and where to say it, because we believe everyone deserves to have their message heard. Today, we have a special guest on the program, Becky Bradbury, Director of Initiatives with Next Step Ministries. And we're going to help Becky tell her story. And there's a very important reason that we're doing this. Isn't that right, Paul?
That's right. So Becky, you have kind of a great role with Next Step Ministries. Can you just give us a little bit of just the kind of maybe the elevator pitch background of Next Step and what you guys do?
For sure, Paul. So Next Step Ministries is an organization here in Calgary, and we journey alongside women who've been impacted by sexual exploitation and sex trafficking. So we've been officially incorporated for 12 years now, and we've just been doing good work ever since. So it's really a tiny snapshot of what we do in a day.
That's good. Well, we're going to get more into that. So welcome, Becky. And I'm just going to give a little background for people who are like, why is Becky here? Why are we doing this? Well, we want to help Becky and Next Step Ministries tell their story. And Becky was a founder, I believe, of the organization. That's right, Becky, right?
Yeah.
You're founder. And so what we're doing at Christmas is we're giving Next Step Ministries a nice financial donation. We're going to do a fake check presentation at the end of this, which will be fun. But we also want to give the gift of awareness. And so, financial donations are great. Obviously, if you're looking for somewhere to give at the end of the year here, we definitely recommend Next Step Ministries, and we'll, I think, explain why that is the case. But last year we did the Caring Place in Regina. We did a great video for them and a financial donation, and brought awareness. And I know a lot of you got involved and donated to their cause. And now we're doing an organization in Calgary that we thought was really interesting. And how I heard about these guys was a friend of mine who I worked with in Regina. She actually moved to Calgary to go work at Next Step Ministries. And she was so passionate about this topic of human trafficking, sexual exploitation, and kind of rescuing women from the streets of Calgary. So how I think we should talk about this is how we help everybody with marketing, is we want to start with the problem. So when we help clients, we say, what is the medicine that you provide for your community, a customer, in a political circle, whatever it is, there's a problem and you provide the medicine for it. So let's start with the problem. Becky, what is the problem in Calgary that probably a lot of us don't know about in this area?
For sure. So I'm going to go back a little bit into our history of why we even started. So Next Step actually was started by Phil and Jackie Reimer. They are a pastoral couple here in Calgary, and they felt called out of the church just to serve people who had high needs. Through that journey of over about 20 years volunteering with other agencies within the city, they really saw the gap with women who've been impacted or are experiencing exploitation and trafficking. And so from that needs analysis, when Next Step was started, it was people helping people, really just to take their next step. That was kind of our whole vision, mission, goal, people helping people take their next step. We're just journeying together. And through, like I said, just journeying intentionally, we saw the major needs. So there was an organization, and that's how I started volunteering through them, that does work with this population. Unfortunately, the wait lists were always so high, and there's just never enough services. And so from that need, we decided, let's do something about it. Thus, here we are.
And now we're here. Yeah.
And now we're here. A few battles in between, but we really just wanted to have a safe place for women to exit out of exploitation and find a home, find a place where they could be loved. Kind of our landmarks are that a woman knows she's loved. She knows that God loves her and that she has a choice. So there's a whole spectrum of exploitation and trafficking and sex work. It's a whole continuum. And so what we wanted to offer was a safe place for anyone. Now, what it looks like in Calgary today.
No, that's exactly where I was going. What's the snapshot of what it looks like in Calgary today?
So what it looks like in Calgary is, again, the need has grown over the past 12 years. It has not diminished. It has grown exponentially. So there's a lot of exploitation and trafficking that happens online. There's very little that has gone to stroll, if that's a familiar topic for people, where, street prostitution, et cetera, has diminished with the advent of more online capacity. And what we're seeing more and more is, as the vulnerabilities increase within our communities, like poverty and homelessness, broken homes, etc. More and more women and girls are being exploited and trafficked as a viable option for financial opportunity. So that's kind of what we see a lot of here in Calgary, a lot of online. The average age of entry is usually between 12 and 14 years old. So, yeah.
So walk me through this a little bit, because I'm not educated on this topic as well as I should be. But you have a 12 to 14-year-old girl. They are struggling probably for some reason, don't have a good parenting situation. They may be homeless for whatever reason. And so someone comes up to them and says, you could do these sort of acts, and we'll give you some, a lot of money and probably a place to live. Is that something typically that happens at that age?
Absolutely, that can happen for sure. A lot of it is really, so that exploitation piece is an exploitation of a need. So even over the past year and a half, where we've seen a lot of young adults and youth and adults at home online, all it takes is for someone to put up on their social media or whatever platform they're using, I just don't feel pretty today. That's what a trafficker is looking for. Oh, you're beautiful. And so what they'll do is they start this grooming process, and this kiddo could have great parents, but yet there's still something missing. Obviously, someone's homeless or experiencing, some severe marginalization that's really upfront. Those are a lot higher risk. But any need can be exploited and turned around. And it just starts with a conversation often. And, you're so pretty. Let me, be your support. They cut off those healthy relationships. And eventually with that love bomb, those girls start doing things they never would have imagined.
So that blows my mind, Becky. I mean, I have, I think we were just saying earlier, I have 5 daughters, and I aside from just the thought of them kind of being dragged in against their will into something like this is just, against their will is, I guess, kind of a sort of a turn of phrase, because they don't necessarily have the same kind of freedom of choice that other adults do, right? In this sense, they're minors. They have kind of a different kind of view or perception of reality at that stage of their life. They have a different maturity level. They have different needs, obviously, that they're looking to have kind of satisfied, mental, emotional needs, like you said, kind of that affirmation. Can you just I just kind of always saw this as a problem that happened elsewhere in the world, not necessarily locally here at home. Is that true that it's really kind of a growing problem here, even in these local areas? I just always pictured this as something else in a faraway country, in Bangladesh or in China or another place like that. I didn't think that it was kind of a big deal.
That was totally my perception as well. I remember when I first heard about it, I was blown away that it actually happened here. And then I started doing research. I love research and data. And so some of the latest stats from 2018 in Stats Canada, actually, it's about 93% of women trafficked in Canada are Canadian. So Canada is a source and a destination place. Yes, it does happen overseas, absolutely, as most people are aware. But what happens here isn't as glamorous as the movies portray. So it's those kind of insidious relationships and grooming pieces, like I said, where things happen where no one would expect it to go. And calling it trafficking, if it doesn't look, somebody's forced, abducted, etc., most people wouldn't even recognize the mechanisms that are going on behind the scenes. So yeah, for sure, it does happen here.
How many women are we talking, Becky, do you think, in Calgary?
Goodness. So a 2008 study said approximately 3,000.
Wow.
And that was a really low estimate, I believe, back then. It's really hard to get a grip. Again, I love stats. I love data, but trying to get a handle on what's actually going on, because a lot of what we see too is survival sex. So exchange for shelter, safety, substances, and trying to, factor those numbers in is nearly impossible.
We're talking thousands of women, obviously.
Absolutely. Thousands.
And the numbers growing. I didn't expect the social media thing to be such a big piece of it. You kind of think it's someone on the street approaches a young girl, but it makes a lot more sense. And that's maybe how young girls can, even from good families, can fall into this lifestyle, right? And then, of course, there's addiction and everything that comes with it. And then it sort of becomes part of a cycle that you can't get out of. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. And, I would say in our housing and in our program, about 97% of the women also have concurrent addiction. concerns or substance misuse disorder, and, mental health concerns, like so much trauma. And that's kind of the base of where those addictions come from or where those mental health concerns come from. But you look at, so many people who are marginalized, and their risk factors increase with every marginalization put upon them. So yeah, it's a huge problem.
Let's talk about the solution now. So I think that sums up the problem. It's like, okay, we got some problems going on here.
We got some problems.
So the solution, I'll say from my poor understanding of what you guys do, it's a woman wants out. They want out of this lifestyle. They know of addictions issues. Maybe they have a family member or a friend that's is helping them try to get out of the lifestyle. And then that's where you guys come in. And what do you do after that?
Yeah. So at Next Step, we offer kind of 4 main programs. And so outreach is our biggest entry. So gals, they hear about us, somebody knows somebody's, et cetera, and that first phone call. And so that first phone call takes so much courage, because like you talk, people get stuck in cycles and there's shame, and there's so much courage to make that phone call. So they make that phone call, and we have the best outreach workers. Derek, one of them. She's amazing.
Katura, yeah, she's fantastic.
Yeah, she's absolutely incredible. And from that first phone call, we do our best to offer hope. There is solutions. There is hope. You are not stuck in this. So outreach is really just meeting people where they're at. And if they want to exit right now, working on emergency exit plans, getting them those basic needs, getting them to safety, whatever that looks like for that person. It's just a long-standing relationship building process. So I have one gal, because I used to do outreach, and I have one gal that I journeyed with for 6 years.
Wow.
And, met her wherever she was at, brought her groceries when needed, long-standing history of just loving her. And that's it, checking in, making sure she's alive. There was times, where that was in question. And I can say today, after 6 years, she now has 7 months clean and sober, and is working on her future and possibly looking to go back into, post-secondary and she's living very inspirationally. So she's got goals and dreams and hope. So there is hope. And it was those relationships that is just ongoing. So outreach is just meeting people where they're at,
finding someone that cares, right?
Absolutely. Someone will listen to you and without judgment.
And provide that hope. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not a, if you do this, we can do this. It's, hey, you're amazing. What do you need today? So that's outreach, getting them where they're at, and, basic needs. Sometimes it's ID. Most of the women we work with have had their ID stolen or destroyed. It sounds simple. They don't have access to, if you don't have ID, you don't have access to anything.
Right. No government services or anything like that.
A lot of them, no, even some healthcare without ID.
I guess, without a health card, right?
You can't access income support. You can't. So really, some of it's starting right from ground zero and getting identification.
Didn't think of that. That'd be a way to keep people in the system, right? Under the hand of a pimp or whatever. Absolutely. Is you just destroy their ID and you can't get any support except through me and through what you have to do. Yeah. Okay. I'm getting educated, Becky. Thank you.
Perfect. And I love the question, so please ask. So then if they come into our programming, that's great. So we have 2 houses currently. We call them sparrow houses, and that's where the girls land. So they are clean and sober houses. We can house up to 8 women. We are full with a wait list at all times. So those houses, we have a live-in volunteer who's amazing and just journeys with the women. So again, really flattening that power differential. Right. And it's about the journey, and we're all in this together. Yeah.
These houses, just to interrupt, like I kind of see them when I was when I was talking about this with Katura, I think, was they kind of seem like a witness protection program almost for these women. Because they're like, sort of like, you don't know the location. So, because I know there's a lot of threats to women that are trying to leave the lifestyle that, hey, I'm going to kill you or your family or something like that if you leave. So this is probably pretty dangerous work for you and other workers as well, isn't it?
It can be. Absolutely. And that's part of our initial assessments is some of that risk mitigation. So some of these gals, their pimps or their traffickers are relentless, and we need to get them out of town, sometimes even out of province.
Right.
So we actually work across Canada with several different organizations, and they'll have gals that need to get out of town and come to us and vice versa. So we kind of have like a little bit of an underground railroad for safety purposes.
Right. Yeah. I know what you mean. Okay. So they go to the houses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's like a program for the
so while the
holidays.
women are in housing, they go to day program Monday through Friday, and they work through life skills, emotional skills. Some of our gals have, grade 6 education. So it's going all the way back and, assisting with reading for some of them, for some of the textbooks or the class books that they're working on. Some of the gals, they've never lived in a home environment. We had one gal who had literally lived her life shopping at 7-Eleven and Circle K. And we'd given her a Superstore grocery card, and she walked into Superstore and had a panic attack. It was so big and so overwhelming for her. She's like, there's 70 kinds of laundry detergent. What do I choose? How do I do this? Right. And so that's for some people's experience. They've just never had that. For others, we've had gals that have graduated out of university and just gotten trapped in the lifestyle. So it's really individualized. Our day program is a lot about emotional skills, life skills, recovery, healing. We do a lot of fun things as well, because that's really important for brain development. Right. So going mountain climbing or hiking, going sledding. I remember one day we had a bunch of gals and we played in the sprinkler. And it sounds so silly. My kiddos were really little and we were playing in a sprinkler and the girls were laughing. And, these are women in their 20s and 30s. And one of them is like, I've never played in the sprinkler before. So just finding these little tiny pockets of joy sometimes just, it really impacts you and causes some of that change. And then we also have a whole job skills development course as well.
I see.
Because that leads into our 4th program, Follow Care. So we want these women to be able to independently live and be able to take care of themselves and their families without ever resorting back to exploitation.
Right. That's great.
That's wild. When you first started talking about, first of all, I had no idea the scope of the problem, Becky. And then I honestly, when you kind of mentioned the problem, I imagine most people probably hear about it for the first time, their heart kind of sinks, right? And you get this either you get kind of the shock or frustration or just kind of just complete surprise at the level of how this is happening here at home at the scale that it is. But then I kind of as you started talking about the solution, I just felt very hope-filled. And I felt very you guys, the medicine you provide, at a very granular level, or maybe you want to call it a high level, is hope. But you provide that hope through a real path for these women to exit and not just exit, but exit permanently and actually just live their life. You give them a chance to actually live life the way it's kind of meant to be lived, right? The way that everyone should deserve to have the chance to live. I guess the one thing I kind of was just also surprised at, just from a scale level, is how you mentioned kind of briefly the partnership level kind of across Canada and with other organizations. I'm just seeing a lot more kind of awareness start to kind of build around this topic. I've just kind of heard bits in the news. I've seen advertising from kind of the federal government, and the Alberta government's been talking about it. Can you talk about kind of maybe sort of the public awareness level, the public becoming more aware of it, and how that's maybe playing into, your organization's, I don't want to call it success, but maybe your organization's growth and ability to serve more women?
Absolutely. Here in Alberta, we actually have the Alberta Human Trafficking Task Force was actually appointed. And they have done some amazing work. So a lot of us on the ground are just so busy doing the work that we don't have capacity to do a lot of the advocacy. And so organizations, like Not My City and Joy Smith Foundation, these guys are really taking that initiative and moving forward with it. But what I love about the task force as well is that they were government appointed. They interviewed, I think, close to 90 different stakeholders. And they really did an excellent job. They brought in survivors and they brought in NGOs and law enforcement. Right now, I know that their work has been consolidated and it's under review. It hasn't been made public yet, so I'm still waiting to see all the recommendations. Federally as well, there is a lot of work going on. There's the National Strategy to Combat Human Trafficking is also in place. And so as it's not that the problem has never been, but you're right, Paul, it's about awareness. And so if people don't know the scope of the problem and they don't understand the mechanisms behind it, we can't fight it. I'm seeing a lot more happening in the last 10 years than there was, when we first started.
Yeah, that's a nice sign of hope as well.
Right. So, I always have, when I'm giving to an organization or have friends doing the same thing, they want to know how you're funded. So give us an idea. Is there government funding available? Is it mostly private donors? How does that all look?
We are mostly funded by private donors, foundations. We do apply for grants. We did, especially during COVID, because we didn't actually shut down any of our services. We actually grew significantly over the past year and a half. So we were able to do that with a bit of granting, but mostly it comes from amazing people like you guys. So a lot of businesses and organizations who get to see the work we get to do and support that way.
That's really good. So I think we've covered the problem, the solution you provide, and we'll like to talk about people's USPs or unique selling propositions. So it's like, what makes you unique? What makes you special? Let's maybe just do that for a couple of minutes. Why do you think you're unique? I know there's other organizations that do this work, but there's no shortage of need here. It's like you guys always have wait lists and everything. And I know you're trying to grow and expand as well. But what makes you at Next Step Ministries unique?
Yeah, we really care about each individual. I think that's one thing that we do very well here is it's not a blanket solution. Each person has their own unique gifts, talents, abilities, but they also have their own unique trauma. We can say 17 people have addiction problems, but yet each person has their own story of how they got there and their own healing needs. And so that's one thing that we really take into account. And we're about offering choice. Like I said in the beginning, we really want gals to know that they're loved and that God loves them and they have a choice. We believe, we're a faith-based organization, and yes, we really do stand on that God made each of these women uniquely and for good purposes. And so that is something we try to share with them is how beautiful and unique they are. And they were made for good purpose. So that's, again, bringing in the faith component is different from some organizations. Others, it's kind of standard as well.
Yeah, that's probably not for everybody, but it's probably for a lot of people. And I think an identity thing, I've always heard, God does not make junk. And that's right. You have a purpose and a plan. And that's very meaningful for lots of people. And I think there's a growing awareness that even if you don't believe a certain faith, everyone should have a spiritual side. There's something there, and to provide someone a foundation for that to explore their own life later, I think is honestly really important for healing and transformation. And that's my personal opinion, but I'm a little biased here. As, a lot of people watching would probably know, but that's great on the unique selling proposition. So I like that. And then, so the final thing that we talk about is kind of a story. We say you should always have testimonials. What are some examples of people, and obviously can't use names or anything like that because we got to protect identities, but stories of success.
Stories of success. Oh my goodness.
You're the one you already shared. So maybe that was your one, and I ruined it.
No, it's good. Well, there's so many, and that's the thing is success is so unique and individual to each person. Successes can be gigantic or they can be tiny. I remember a tiny success is we have a lot of gals also have criminal justice involvement. And I remember it was this really, really cold day. And this gal had been, again, raised in a family, very atypical to probably how I'm going to suppose you and I were raised, and lifelong criminal history. And she came to class that morning and it was freezing cold. She was bundled up and she's frozen. She's like, I came to class and I didn't steal any vehicles along the way. Cars started everywhere. I could have jacked a car and been here, but I didn't. Wow. So that was a huge success for her.
That's good. That's real good. Success. I didn't steal a car. That's good.
Didn't steal a car. I mean,
making progress.
Get their kids back and, maintain their housing, get jobs, go back to post-secondary school, reunite with family members that have been, relationships that have been torn apart years ago. So, we get to see some really amazing stuff every day, but it's those tiny successes that we build on.
Yeah, no doubt.
Not stealing cars.
I'm just very, inspired by how you're able to be a part of people's success individually, whatever that success looks like, whether it's overnight or whether it takes, a good amount of time. It's helpful to see kind of the support of an organization like Next Step being a part of that. The one thing I was going to bridge to was just, we kind of started this podcast. The reason we called it make a statement is because we wanted to really encourage people to get out there and do something positive. Not just talk about it, not just kind of like circle around the bush too long, but actually do something. And so when we were thinking about the statement that we could make at Christmas time to offer kind of a gift, there's probably no wrong way to give to an organization or to a charity at Christmas time, but we just thought, what a statement it is to kind of bring awareness to an organization that's doing good work on the ground. Like, how can people make a statement in this industry? How can they kind of help be a part of your success? What is kind of the way that you can encourage people, whether it's through supporting your organization or otherwise? What kind of hope would you give to people who want to kind of help eradicate this scourge of human trafficking themselves?
Yeah, every single person has a part to play. Whether you want to volunteer and be frontline, whether it's, your time in that way or your talents in one-to-one volunteering, but also too, I think being a part of a culture and connection where we have a community that says this is not allowed. And we treat each person as a unique individual worth protecting and valuing, not as a commodity, not as someone who, it's that person over there. That person over there is still in your world and still matters. I think that's one thing that we can all do is look around, and would you allow the people in your life to experience abuse or to be exploited, and say absolutely not, and extend that to the greater community. I could probably list a million ways how to do that, given the time, but, educate yourselves, know more about the issues. What are those variables that contribute to trafficking? Look into how pornography plays into this as well. And how can we protect our communities, our kids, but also make this, again, cultivate that culture that says absolutely not.
That's good. That's really good. And I'll make a statement here as well, is if there's anyone watching this, friends of us or just in our network or clients or whatever, and you're looking to do some year-end donations, get behind these guys. Talk to them. How do we donate? What's the way to do it, Becky?
Yeah. So on our website, we have a big old donate button. It works great. So that's probably the easiest way we do. If you're on the website and you want to meet with one of our staff or meet with myself or George, we're available. We love to connect with people, but online donations are accepted. And we also do have a wish list on Amazon regularly because we do a lot of care packages for gals in the community. That's updated. And if you'd like to know more, get a hold of us.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, we can probably put some contact information on the social media post or whatever we're doing with this thing. And we're going to have this up before Christmas. So make sure to get it before year end, because tax credits are good. There's nothing wrong with tax credits,
It's all wins.
Absolutely. Okay. And we actually are going to do a fake check presentation. This is not a real check. This will not be accepted by financial institutions at all. I made it last night on Canva. So here's your check, Becky. You can pretend to be receiving it.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for all you do, Mass Strategy team and clients. So I'll send the e-transfer later. E-transfer is also a great way to do it if you want to avoid the credit card fees. Everybody, that's always a good thing. So, Paul, any final comments before we wrap this up?
No, I'm thankful for what you guys do every day at Next Step to help educate us, and also to help kind of show women that there is a way out, and that you can be, that they have a path forward, and that they can actually live life to the fullest. It's something that obviously as a parent, I'm going to think long and hard about how I educate my kids about just sort of the realities of what happens in our communities. Obviously, as age allows us to educate our kids at different levels, but just giving them the opportunity to know that, there are great groups like you guys that are doing good work, and I'm going to look to promote those organizations wherever I can, whether they're in Alberta, where I live, or my home province of Saskatchewan, or elsewhere in Canada. I'm just very inspired by the work that groups like yours are doing on the ground, and I want to thank you for sharing that with us and for sharing some hope.
Thank you.
I echo that. And thank you for doing the work in a nonprofit, because I've worked in a nonprofit before. I know the wages are not what they are in the private sector and government or anything like that, where Paul and I have worked, and, there's fancy pensions and all sorts of things. And yeah, you just don't have that nonprofits typically. And so thanks for serving and doing what you do when you could be doing something else, but you choose to do this. And I know it's not easy work all the time. So thank you to you and everyone else in the organization for helping impact people in our community. There's no shortage of need. And we just want to promote you and say you're awesome. So
thanks, Guy.
Thank you, Becky, so much for coming on. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I just want to say thank you guys to you as well. Because sometimes it can be a bit lonely doing this work. And when, it's so amazing to hear men stand up and say, this is not allowed, and to look into this and support it for Smash. Again, for everybody who's a part of this, I just, again, myself and organizationally want to say thank you. We appreciate you guys too.
I'm going to use that as the challenge to all men, actually, to make a statement in your communities, to stand up and say that, you won't allow this, and that you're going to take a step, whatever that looks like, whatever that step looks like, to help groups like Next Step or otherwise help them and find a path out of this cycle.
Well, it's a good way to end it. Thank you, Becky, so much for coming on. Appreciate your time this morning. And hope to connect with you more in the future and see how else we can get involved with Next Step. So have a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. And we'll talk to you in 2022.
Merry Christmas.